Drowsy driving is a very serious and very common problem in our society. We need to pursue this problem with as much vigor as we have drunken driving.
We know that approximately 50% of our fatal injury car crashes every year are alcohol and/or drug related. So something else must be causing these other 50%, and fatigue is likely a very big factor in these other car crashes.
The particular area that I supervise is Adams and Lincoln County, which is basically rural wheat country, and the vast majority of our collisions down here on the interstate involve people that are falling asleep.
A carload of young people were traveling on Interstate 90 near Ellensburg in the middle of July, and the driver fell asleep. He'd been up the night before partying, and the next afternoon was traveling cross-state with his friends, and just dozed off, went off the road and rolled it over. It was a very sad accident because there's no gross negligence. The driver just fell asleep, and the worst part was that the passenger did not have a seatbelt on and was ejected and killed. And it's very sad when a simple buckle would have taken care of the problem.
We're at milepost 206 eastbound on I-90. We had a one-car driver-causing fatality out here where the driver actually was coming eastbound, came around the corner, and you can see the marks that I painted on the road to indicate where the tires went off the road. She was off the road for about 300 feet before she realized it. By the time she corrected the vehicle, she overcorrected it, went into the guardrail, causing the vehicle to roll several times across both lanes of I-90, coming to rest in the left lane out here. She died, I believe it was a month later, due to the injuries caused from the accident.
Another case that comes to mind is was a woman driving a Chevrolet Suburban. She was from the Spokane area, had driven over here to Seattle, visit some family. Got an early start the next morning, had 6 children. She dozed off, fell asleep, and just straightened the curve out and drove into a major irrigation ditch. She was able to get out of the vehicle, and 3 of the children, but 3 of them drowned. And that was directly attributable to fatigue. That's probably the most tragic collision we had.
Well, it was a summer night about 3 years ago, and my husband and I had been in Seattle, and I knew I was tired on this particular night. It was late, midnight, 1 o'clock, and we headed home. I don't remember much. All I remember is the steering wheel being jerked in my hands. And I woke up to find that my husband had grabbed the wheel because I had dozed off. I feel like he probably saved us from a fatal crash.
Most people think they can make it this extra 5 miles. That's when they fall asleep. Or they may not be asleep, but they go into what they call a hypnotic state.
There is a problem, I feel, in a particular area like this where you've got a lot of flat wheat country where people kind of get themselves into a hypnotic trance and actually forget where they're going and what they're doing, and the next thing they know they're off the road and in the ditch.
When a person gets into this state, is they have a tendency to either overreact to situations that are not dangerous or not react to a situation that is dangerous. These are symptoms that, unfortunately, if the driver's dead, we're left to try to figure out as reconstructionists.
The exact role of fatigue in crashes is difficult to pinpoint, hotly debated, and underreported.
Drowsy driving has certainly hit the forefront in the last decade. It's a very underreported type of accident in the fact that most people without anonymity will not admit that they fell asleep at the wheel.
In the case of alcohol or drug impaired driving, there's a lot of physical evidence we can collect. We can do breath tests for alcohol, we can do tests of blood samples for the presence of a variety of drugs and for alcohol. But in the case of somebody who's impaired through drowsy driving or fatigue, there's really no test we can do to show that. So in car crashes where there's no evidence of an impairment of the driver through other factors like drug or alcohol use, the only evidence you have is the victim's recounting of what he believes contributed to the accident, which may or may not include an appreciation of whether they were fatigued or not.
I have driven quite a bit in my lifetime when I'm drowsy, and I don't know, I guess you feel stupid or, that you're somehow inadequate to, to do something as easy as drive home for an hour that you have to pull over and sleep.
Fatigue as a causation factor is generally overlooked in the collision analysis. It's difficult to determine. There's no set pattern from our investigative standpoint. It's based on the activity of the individuals involved.
We live a lot more hectic lifestyle, there's no doubt about it. Most families are double income. The husband and the wife both work. They're both sharing the duties at home. They raise children. Pretty much burning from both ends.
On May 10th, 1994, I woke up at my normal time of 5:15. Wayne was driving between Redmond and Falls City, and that was part of his route. And I noticed they have traffic reports every 15 minutes in the morning at that time.
Big problems this morning. Only one major blocking problem in the outlying areas that we know of, and that is on the Redmond-Falls City Highway.
He did everything right. He was almost off the side of the road, except there was no side to the road.
There is a head-on collision. One of the cars completely destroyed, the other one destroyed and tossed off into the ditch, so I'd look for alternatives.
He was almost in the ditch when he was hit by a driver that fell asleep at the wheel and killed my husband instantly. What I found out about the other driver, he had been working all the day before.
This fella, he was working 2 jobs. He worked all day as a construction worker, then he also did some stuff on the side.
The driver was staying up all night to work on an apartment complex that he had built or trying to remodel.
He worked all evening on those well into the late night, about 4 o'clock in the morning, and then he had to be at work the next day at 6:30 or 7. So that doesn't leave much time for sleep.
He was coming back into the city to get ready for his daytime job, and he fell asleep and crossed the center line and killed a gentleman going the opposite direction.
The person that killed my husband only received a $250 negligent driving ticket and did not even have to show up in court to hear the letter I'd written.
Enforcing lack of sleep is a real tough proposition for the trooper. You know, he's got to make some decisions out there. Normally what we try to do is educate the motoring public. Luckily, what we have had accomplished here over the last few years, we've got rumble strips on the shoulders that often do help wake people up when they nod off.
Rumble strips are indentations in the shoulder pavement that are hopefully there to prevent run-off-the-road type accidents. The newest generation of rumble strips were designed with the truck driver in mind. The radius of these concave indentations in the shoulder matched the radius of a truck tire. And so that it was essential that when this design went down that it address the radius of a truck tire, because truck drivers are probably prone to it as much as anybody. The rumble strips have had some statistical data done with them, and in particular, states of New York and Pennsylvania have published data where continuous shoulder rumble strips reduced run-off-the-road type accidents by 70%.
The National Sleep Foundation estimates that 20 to 30% of shift workers have had drowsy driving mishaps.
Sleep deprivation is epidemic in our society. Often people who work the graveyard shift revert to a more normal sleep-wake schedule on their days off. This means that they're perpetually jet-lagged, if you will.
We can have fatigue crashes that occur on sunny, warm days at 3 in the afternoon, as easily as we can have fatigue collisions occur at 2 in the morning.
We not only need to educate shift workers about the dangers of drowsy driving, but we need to educate their employers. This will not only increase safety, but improve productivity and reduce healthcare costs.
What I spent a lot of time thinking about is, why didn't I just pull off for a few minutes to sleep? Or why didn't I say, hey, I'm tired, let's stay here tonight? And then, of course, I always think about the what-ifs of, what if we had been, killed or seriously injured? Would have never had my child. Would have never done a lot of things.
My life, I don't call it a life anymore. Because when my husband died, it took most of my life too. Because there's not much you can do alone. I don't call what I'm doing living, I call it existing. Without him, nothing matters.
It's scary to think that I can be the cause of something horrible happening to them, or something horrible happening to all of us. It's very scary.
People get hurt. People die. It hurts families. Don't think of just others. Think of yourself. Because it could be you that is a quadriplegic or dead. And your family the one left hurting. So if you're tired, take a nap. Pull over. Get out of your car. Because the life you save may be your own.